As a business, I don't want to be just comfortable. You know, like I feel like some of the coolest shit that I ever did was when I was working out of a basement, you know, and I want to be uncomfortable because, I mean, this is art, you know, like I want to create something. And when you get comfortable, like I don't know, you just become less creative. I've always made stencils for spray painting things, and you know, I started doing it to help, you know, promote shows. But at some point, I decided that I wanted to start stenciling the covers of our test pressings for the LPs that I was releasing, and I chose that because it allowed me to kind of give each record its own hands-on touch. It's like once an album is in stores, it's kind of, you know, maybe it feels like kind of a product. But I wanted something that I kind of personalized. You know, each one might be a little different. I'll spray paint, maybe sometimes I'll use 2 different colors of paint, and I'll paint each one in a different pattern or use the colors differently. It's almost like punk rock Americana. It's something where it's not really meant to be art, but it's personalized, and it's just an opportunity to add a little creative touch to something that, you know, where you might not expect it.
One of the things that I attribute our creativity in strength and conditioning training to is the fact that I moved into those realms from really unconventional backgrounds, and there was no box to think inside. When we first got into fitness, I realized that everybody was kind of doing the same thing because that's what everybody has been doing, and I was hardwired against that entire concept. So if something was really prevalent and popular, there had to be a undercurrent there that people were looking for. So when we started developing movements and we started thinking about language to convey the brand and things like that, it really came from the idea of running a band or running a brand and then insulating it with all the physical details. So never was it just a place for people to come in and work out, but it's developed into one of the best places in the world for people to come in and work out.
All right, so this is a cable camera that I built in, I think, 2014. It's inspired by the overhead cable camera system that the NFL uses. The idea I had at the time was if I had a cable suspended over a venue, over a crowd, I could have this guy running. So the camera sits in that cradle, and there's a pulley system here. So there's 2 wheels on either side and a pulley motor in the middle. And the idea is this would sit on a cable, and as the motor's spinning, this would move along left and right. And the camera sits in this cradle, and it could also pan and tilt. The way I built this was I taught myself how to use AutoCAD, and I took a couple classes at a local machine shop when I was living in Boston. And I bought some airplane grade aluminum and basically plasma cut everything. I built the electronics with like an Arduino kit, and I reprogrammed a Xbox controller to actually control it to move left and right and pan and tilt. It worked in a closed setting, like in my backyard, with just a cable suspended between 2 trees, but I never got to actually use it at a show. Obviously, it's pretty big. It's potentially fatal if it falls on someone's head. But as a proof of concept, it worked, and it was a good experience to at least go through that and learn how to take an idea and see it to completion. Yeah, so right now it just sits on my wall as like an art piece and a reminder of the idea of doing it yourself and trying to build something.
This is the good one, though. The black flag, like fucking shitty ass, like scarred up fucking knees, a goddamn middle finger tattoo, black flag coffee cup, some misspelled tattoos, Milo. Fucking dumb shit. I'm the dude my mom warned me about, and she must be so horrified at what she created. I was the bad kid growing up.
What do you think about creativity?
Well, I think one of the things, you know, in my experiences is like when you don't have a lot of resources or you don't have a lot of means, like you rely heavily on creative problem solving. Made it work. And so creativity is like an absolute if you're in a small business. Unless you got a big bank card and a marketing department and like you can hire a bunch of pro BMXers to solicit bike parts to kids, then you got to be creative on like how you're gonna get your message out there, or how you're gonna get like a project done, or if you can't really afford to live in a penthouse in New York, you got to get creative about turning a school bus into your home. How's that? It's like with the bike company, we've managed to stay reasonably competitive against like some of the biggest and most popular brands with such a small budget. You know, we're totally aware of what we don't have access to as far as like money and celebrity endorsements and stuff like that. But what we can do that other people can't is really make something happen like within our community and with the community, and like rally everybody together for a cause. You know, doing it kind of like off the cuff and like in an offbeat fashion, and people really relate to that because like when you first got into BMX or skateboarding or whatever, you know, the first ramp you ever saw was like, you know, I'll fucking show you a picture. You know, literally just like a brick on a board. If you bring it down to these basic fundamentals, everyone just relates to that. It's like super simple. Anyone could do that, you know? It's like anyone could make a ramp out of fucking garbage. Look at that fucking thing, like.
When you're a brand new brand and you don't have any money, you don't have much of a marketing budget, what do? You know, like you have to turn to kind of a guerrilla marketing effort where you can get the word out and save some money and do it on the cheap. ago when my label was, you know, 4 years old and had maybe 3, 4 records out. I came down here in the middle of the night. I brought a 5-gallon bucket of white paint, a couple gallons of black paint, and just spent a few hours in the middle of the night on the edge of that bridge. I'm looking at it now, I can't believe I did it, but like I had to like walk along and like stand on this pipe, hold the top of this, and then just like whitewash like the entire length of the bridge. And then I went back over it, so I had like a 12-inch brush, like, you know, roller, to do all the white, cover what was already there. And then I took a 6-inch brush with black, and then just did big, bold letters. Bridge 9, BHG for Boston Hardcore, like 1999 on it. Probably took me 3 hours. And if, I mean, it was before I had a cell phone. If I fell in the water, I probably would have been done. But those are some of the things you do when you're trying to promote a brand and you have no money. And it was up for, I mean, I think 6 months. Storrow Drive has something like 100,000 cars on it a day. And I mean, you couldn't have, I could never have afforded that amount to reach that amount of eyeballs. So, you know, it was probably not the safest thing to do, coming out here and shimmying along the edge of a bridge, you know, over the dark Charles River at 2, 3 in the morning, but it was effective.
And people don't see what I do as a creative thing. I think they just think I'm standing up there holding a camera, pressing record, and that's it. But there are a lot of creative decisions, especially if I'm like multi-camming the show. There's decisions about where to put the other cameras. There's decisions about how to edit it, how to cut between them. For me, this project has always been about using it as an avenue for trying new things. So I started the site in 2008, and at that point, I had never really built a website before. I've always been a programmer, but I've never actually sat down and built a site. So for me, part of the motivation with running this project was, let me just start teaching myself new things. So it started with, you know, learning how to use a camera, learning how to edit, learning how to work with live audio. And then it became, okay, let me build a website that has a search engine and provides a central resource for people to find the videos that they want to see very easily. And then it grew into like, okay, I have this idea that I want overhead moving shots. Like, how can I achieve this without, at the time, drones and stuff like that were expensive. So the natural thing that I asked myself was, well, can I build this? And so it was then a process of trying to reverse engineer similar designs that I've seen and trying to figure out, okay, here's how I think it can be done. Let me actually go ahead and try it. So I think the idea of creativity has been central to what I do since the beginning, because I see it as a playground for trying new things and experimenting with different ideas.
The mace is something that we found in 2004. We're very glad we did. It was kind of a mystical tool of old-timey wrestlers, and especially the Indian wrestling culture and things like that. So I gravitated towards it immediately. And even though the initial practice was clunky and probably super unsafe, I saw a value in it that we had to follow. 2004 or so, Torque Athletic was a company that made maces, and so we had a couple of those. Once they went out, then we just had to make our own for a while. So we welded shit to other shit. We found things that would work. And then ultimately the goal was to construct a mace. It took me almost 9 years to put a ball on the end of a stick for commercial use. And now that we have, though, we sell Wolf Brigade maces, and they're excellent, indestructible, personalized. We're very proud to be able to make them here in Rochester as well. It was not an easy path, but it was worthwhile now that it's on track. When we figured out that we could make a mace, we wanted to offer the tool, but we also wanted to customize the tool. Something I loved the most was reading the etching around the inside of the 7-inch when I was a kid. I still love that. I mean, there's records I still pull out of my collection now just to look at what they had to say at that point. With Hell on Earth, we always sent little quirky stuff out that no one was expecting, and separate from any of the products themselves, that always got the best feedback. We do the same thing now with Wolf Brigade. Anytime I send a book out to anybody, I mean, they get more stuff than they could probably imagine. So with the maces, we just wanted to offer that same thing. The cost is such that we can't really send much with them. Making heavy metal things in America is extremely expensive, and I would imagine often a terrible idea. So one way that we can relatively inexpensively personalize them is with these etchings. So it's just a Dremel tool and some creativity, and now we'll start taking a little bit of custom artwork from people, but usually it's just our logo and a couple of symbols, and that's the end of it.
A wild scenario is in like 2000 FBM, the bike company was just like an office space with like a tiny warehouse, and it caught on fire and burnt down. At that point, you know, I'd only been doing it for 7 years, but it seemed like my whole life already, you know, at that point, and that's, you know, nearly 20 years ago. Feeling so hopeless and defeated, and like, what the fuck are we gonna do? This was like my whole life, and my dreams like literally up in flames. You kind of at this pretty big crossroads that you're not really prepared for. Not that there's ever been a handbook for any of this shit, but that's like an especially like extreme circumstance. But like, you know, that whole fucking phoenix rising from the ashes bullshit. You know, out of that, we took, you know, what resource and opportunity we had because of the fire, like a very meager insurance claim. Well, there's nothing to lose at this point. We already, like, our whole lives just burnt down. Let's, you know, what are our dreams? And, you know, it was always our dream to, like, make our own bikes, you know, like having a bike company and a brand is one thing, but like physically manufacturing stuff is a whole nother, you know, crazy idea. You know, it's a wild undertaking. But had we not been in this, like, you know, tragic circumstance, so to speak, we would have never taken it upon ourselves to, you know, actually like go for it. You know, it's like, fuck, like, here's our chance, like, let's fucking go. You know, doing that was like one of the most proud accomplishments in my time, but also one of the most valuable shared experiences and learning opportunities that I could have ever imagined. You know, it's been like super turbulent, like up and down, and like, you know, it's a big fucking gamble. But doing doing something that was like so important and so like unlikely in that day and age proved to be like so much more valuable than just making and selling bicycles. It was like our version of the American dream. It was fucking awesome, man. It's still awesome, you know? Definitely not a lot of people from my generation could say they were part of the American manufacturing process, you know? Getting steel from a supplier and turning it into a bicycle. Like, that's fucking crazy. And that, you know, I'd like to think it would have happened, but we probably would have been pretty slow at making that transition into manufacturing had we not, you know, caught on fire. So, jump in the fire. There we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, people want something tangible. You know, vinyl's just cool. You know, it's like, you know, we're looking at the Have Heart records. Like, you can do fun, personable, you know, personalized kind of tangible things that CDs, you know, CDs are more of like a product, whereas vinyl, it's you know, it's more a little more artistic.